This is the Heather Petero Show, where conversation meets calling. Today, my guest is a songwriter from Nashville Row, Mr. Bernie Nelson. Bernie, welcome to the show.
How are you? You caught me in my office today, which is a 2019 Ram pickup truck. So,
that's
I get
awesome.
more done in this truck than I do sitting at my house or on Music Row. So
There you go. Well, Bernie, I want to pull up some chairs and a couple of glasses of sweet tea and just talk for a minute with you. You've lived a life most people only see from the outside, the hit songs, the Hall of Fame, the multi-platinum success, the bright lights of Music Row, and I'm sure decades of story. But now you're in Texas Hill Country. Take us into your world. What do you wake up to every day?
I live in the hill country, so that means my house is way up on a hill. So I have the sunrise in the morning and the sunset in the evening. At least people tell me there's a sunrise. I don't usually see it because I'm a songwriter. Uh, I usually don't get up at sunrise, but I did this morning. I don't think I went to bed last night. I didn't go to sleep. Some nights my body says, I'm not tired. And I've learned not to fight that. So I get more inspired sometimes with no sleep. And I've written some big cuts and some big hits on zero sleep. So that's just how it is. But it's beautiful here. I live in the wine country of Texas. I don't drink wine, but we have over 80 wineries within a 20-mile radius. We have music everywhere. And there's a little town down the road called Lookenbach, Texas.
Oh, famous song there, huh?
Yeah.
So are you more creative in the quiet hill country, or did you just relocate the chaos?
I got out of the chaos because Nashville goes in a 5-year spin cycle every 5 years, and it's going back to pop music, and the LA people, New York people stick their head into the music world and decide that they want us to be Dave Matthews or Pitbull or whatever, and it goes through the spin cycle. Well, this cycle lasted longer than 5 years, and it didn't fit the type of music that I like to write. And so I stepped away, and the traffic and what I call the consumption of greed and eating up what used to be Music Row was just more than I wanted to deal with. And I found a perfect fit here in a town called Fredericksburg. We are the bachelorette capital, the wine capital, and I think that the widow capital of Texas. There's more widows in this area than you could shake a Shinerbach beer bottle at. So
You said the through line in your story has always been originality, and that jumped right off the page at me because that's not the easiest road in a business that's always trying to make people sound like whoever worked last. So what has it cost you to stay original?
well, it hasn't cost me anything. It's just it's fortified over 40 years of doing this that's all I'm ever going to do. And it's not that I won't do a stupid fun song. I've got plenty of those, but I do them in an original way. Uh, so you could say we want to party all night long and get in the back of my tailgate and all that stuff. That's not very original. But if you say, hey, I got a red Solo cup, I drink you up, that's original. And if you say, I've got friends in low places, that's original. If you say, she thinks my tractor's sexy, that's original. And so I have stupid songs like, did I take my dip out for this? Or even Walmart wouldn't take her back. Just find a funny way to say something that's already been said, or say something in a serious way that's already been said. I've got a lot of new songs that I think are very powerful, and they touch you in an emotional way. But I say them in what I think is a fresh, unique way. And I always, when I get an idea for a song, unlike Nashville, I Google it to see if it's been written before. These new writers in Nashville have no regard for if it's been written before. They'll write a song called The Dance. They'll write a song called Friends in Low Places, and they don't care that it's already been done. It's just fairly annoying on my part for me, but I'm extremely jaded because I have came up through the ranks with the very, 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 very best writers in the history of country music.
Well, before we get too far, I have to ask about one of your life philosophies because it is either deeply wise or deeply convenient. You said there are no mistakes and you can never be late. So are we talking traffic is a lie, or is this your larger theology of life?
It is. I mean, when you think about your life, One, as a Christian, God knows everything that you're going to do before you do it. And he uses what we call mistakes to put us exactly where he wants us to be. So you might do something stupid like get fired from your job because you showed up drunk, which I don't recommend. But you'll get fired. And if you're pay attention, you'll see that things happen for a reason. And it's not what I call a mistake. It's just a bad decision, but it wasn't a mistake. A mistake is 1 plus 6 equals 19. And the same thing goes with you can never be late because you're always going to show up exactly when you were supposed to show up. You couldn't change it if you tried. Now, I recommend showing up on time, but things happen sometimes. I'm funny when I'm late for an appointment or something and I'm walking out of the house and I can't find my keys. I laugh because that's just the universe or God just slowing me down to get me there exactly when he wants me to be there. So my belief is you can never be late and it's impossible to make a mistake. Everything is predestined.
Well, something I found really interesting, you said if you were ever banned from songwriting, you've got a background in law enforcement to fall back on. Most people just see the hit songwriter, they don't see the former officer. But the more I sat with it, the more it made sense because both of these jobs require you to read people. Both require instinct and both ask you to see what's really going on under the surface. So, how did your time in law enforcement shape the writer that you became?
People think that I got a lot of ideas out of it. I think I got 1 or 2 ideas out of it, some of my favorite songs. But a lot of times I put handcuffs on people in Nashville that came to Nashville for the very same thing that I did. And they weren't as fortunate as I was. And one thing as a deputy sheriff, you can't do is be too compassionate. You still have to, be um, at least here's the deal. This is how it's going to go. And I'm sorry for your situation, but I'm still putting handcuffs on you. You know, but there again, I would say that a good portion of the people that I put into booking or whatever came through Nashville and got on drugs or whatever, and it didn't work out. So, like Keith Urban said there, but for the grace of God go I. But um, I'll tell you what it did do after 7 years as a deputy. My soul was corroded and it was thirsty. And at some point, the universe, God, said, I think you're done with this. And me and the sheriff's office parted company. And within 8 months, I was signed to another publishing deal and writing again on Music Row starting in 2010. And I, have been doing that ever since.
Well, let's talk about your book, Honky Tonk Angels. Tell us about it.
Well, I spent, like I said, 36 years down in Nashville, and so many stories that I knew about were just insanely unimaginable, unbelievable. And the synergy is what the book is really about. But in being, again, a Christian, it talks about how God had to make this happen. And I've seen the best songs that I've ever heard never amount to anything. And I've seen mediocre songs become, classics. But so many songs that we know over the last 50 years were decided by something as simple as a poker game or somebody's Mercedes breaking down and not being able to get there to write. So 2 people wrote something else. And one example is my roommate and I went up to a town called Goodlettsville on a weekend in my Jeep because they were selling exotic cowboy boots for $100, which was back then, a lot of money, but it was still a great deal. And I got in this boot store, and neither my roommate nor I actually had $100 in our checking accounts. We didn't have debit cards. We didn't have anything like that back then. But I had a checkbook, and I had a song on the chart by a major artist. So I was hoping I could convince the sales clerk to hold a check for me because I had, a song in the works and I had money coming in. The sales clerk came over to me. He heard me play at a venue and really enjoyed my music. And I asked him what his name was, and he was a young kid named Garth Brooks. So I asked Garth if he'd hold the check. He did. And then we invited him to come to sit in with us at a venue and swap songs one night. And a week later, the night he sat in, my friend Tony Arata with Garth sitting to my right, played a song called The Dance for the very first time for Garth to hear it. So because I went to Goodlettsville to buy a pair of exotic boots I didn't have $100 for, Garth got to hear the dance.
Oh, that's amazing. So, what's another story from the book that still amazes you?
Um, there's a song, let's just say, two hit writers, uh, Bill Rice and Jerry. There goes my brain. Anyhow, wrote in the daytime all the time at one office on Music Row. And Jerry stayed in Nashville while Bill went back 40 miles out to his house because they'd written in the day. And Jerry came up with an idea called "I'll Think of Something" because he had three girls. He scheduled a date with three different girls, and he was quite the ladies' man back then. His friend said, "What are you going to do if all three girls show up?" He said, "I don't know. I'll think of something." So he called Bill and said, "We need to write this idea. I got a melody." He said, "Let's write tomorrow." He said, "No, we got to write it now. It's in my head. We need to write it." And they'd never written at night. So he convinced Bill into coming in the 40 miles to Nashville. And they were writing in a music room that was usually full of people up and down the halls, upstairs, downstairs, full of people. Downstairs was a record label, Warner Brothers. And at 9 o'clock at night, they heard a knock on the door. And it was the head of the record label downstairs. He heard these two guys writing the song through the ductwork downstairs.
Oh, my goodness.
And he cut the song the next day on Hank Williams Jr. And it made the record, was a substantial hit on Hank Jr. But 18 years later, two friends of mine were big executives for a record label, flew to Beaumont, Texas to hear a guy named Mark Chestnut. And they didn't really think he was that great with his band. They just thought he was a decent bar band. But on the break, he played two songs all by himself. And one of them was the Hank Jr. song, "I'll Think of Something." And that's the song that got him his record deal because two guys sang their song one story above the record label, and the record executive heard them writing and singing through the ductwork. That's insane.
That is. So, one thing you said that is so true and so overlooked, and I totally agree with you, because of the consumeristic nature of music, a lot of people assume the person singing the song wrote the song, and that's just not true. Why do you think that misunderstanding has lasted so long?
I don't think, it in the early 60s or 70s, I started getting a magazine called Country Roundup. And I'd get all these great songs that were on the radio and country music. And then they had lyrics so I could learn the song. And at the bottom of the page or the top of the page, say written by Red Lane, written by Bob McDill, written by Harlan Howard. Now, wait a minute. You mean to tell me that so and so didn't write that? And so I started thinking, hey, there's a thing called songwriters. Because growing up, Paul Simon wrote his own songs. John Denver wrote his own songs. Uh, everyone that I played their music back then, Jim Croce and stuff like that, the Eagles, for the most part, wrote their own songs. So I just assumed that Conway Twitty and Merle Haggard and all these other artists were writing their own songs, but it wasn't the case. And fortunate for me, after having some success in Nashville, some of my heroes that wrote all those songs I grew up with, and I became great friends, and we got to write together, and I learned a lot from being around those writers. It made me a better writer. I tell people, if you want to build rocking chairs for a living, go find somebody that knows how to make rocking chairs and study and learn. And then if you really want to get good at making a great rocking chair, build about 300 rocking chairs, and your 301st rocking chair would be a really good one.
So, you listed two things that you're especially passionate about on your questionnaire that I sent you. You said the songwriting creative process and the true roots of country music. I think those two really go together because when you know the roots, you're not just chasing a trend, you're building from something solid. So, when you say the true roots of country music, what do you mean? Is it storytelling, truth telling, maybe simplicity or emotional honesty? What do you think?
Well, I'm a traditional old school songwriter, but I'm very, very, very open. Recently, the other night, Jelly Roll got not inducted, but became a member of the Grand Ole Opry. And a lot of people on Facebook were barking about it, saying he doesn't deserve to be on there. He's blah, blah, blah. He can't sing and stuff. And, there's a lot of politics involved in that sort of stuff. But I try to remind people that Kenny Rogers and Conway Twitty came over to country music from pop and rock and roll. And they're like, well, that's different. I'm like, no, it's not. In 1962, rock and roll was devil worship compared to country music. It was no one that listened to rock and roll listened to country music. And Kenny Rogers was a pop artist, with the first edition back in the 70s. And he became obviously a massive country artist and a member of the Grand Ole Opry and a member of the Hall of Fame. But I'm pretty open minded to stuff like that. Certain things I don't like. I don't like lack of creativity. So uh, there's so many songs that have the same lines and the same melody and the same title. And that drives me crazy. But I'm jaded, like I said, because I have been around the very, very best that wrote the greatest songs of the last 30 years, 40 years. And so, I try to stick to my roots. And what's funny is all of a sudden the songs that I've been writing for the last 15 years that are pretty country are getting snagged up by Nashville and Texas artists.
So, what makes a song last? What's the difference between one that lives for 50 years and one that disappears by next summer?
I think a lot of the songs that have come out, I would say 70% of the songs that came out in the last 7 years are what I call big lighter songs. Um, if if you took that song from, I don't know, let's say uh, Morgan Wallen, and 8 years from now you went into a bar and say, "Hey, look at this song I wrote for Morgan Wallen." By then, the new generation would have been into the Morgan Wallen songs. They moved on to somebody else, and so they're not really. Oh, I think I know that song. But I've got 17-year-old kids on video learning songs I wrote almost 40 years ago, you know. And the same thing with like Zach Top, for example, the New Deal. He's out there covering songs that have been around for a long time. And people like Tracy Lawrence and Confederate Railroad and uh, Randy Travis and Keith Whitley. The new generation of writers, I'd say the 18, 19, 22-year-olds, are more tuned into that. Whereas the more 30, 30, 40, 30, 33-year-old writers that have been writing stuff for the last 7 years are really into Pitbull and hip hop and stuff. And they tell you that they're country, but they're big Lady Gaga fans, and Dave Matthews fans. And that's all great. I grew up listening to Merle Haggard and Bob Seger. So if you can mesh the two together, you might have something fresh. So
There you go. So you love talking about your faith, and I love that. It's the parts of a person that don't always show up in the public version. So where does faith actually meet your work? How has trusting God shaped the way you handle both success and disappointment?
I don't get disappointed. That's the problem. When you get disappointed, that's telling God, the universe, that you don't believe it's going to happen. If you just trust the process, like I've got songs and in my hot spot in Nashville, I never doubted it. I had so many people. My favorite word has always been no. No, that's not what we're looking for. No, that doesn't work for him. No, that's too country. And it still is. And during the pop phase of country music, people say, Bernie, it's just too country. It's a great song. People really aren't looking for great songs. I go, okay, great. And I never worried about it because great songs find a way to finally come back around. It may take 10 years. They may be hits long after I'm gone, but I really trust the process. And at the end of the day, I have to be proud of what I've written. I can't go, yeah, I sold out and I made, $200,000. And there's nothing wrong with that. If Ashley Gorley or one of those guys in Nashville says, hey, Bernie, I like this idea. Do you want to write it in a bro thing? I'd buck them on it, because the bro thing really isn't popular right now. But we'd write it in a more new Nashville feel combined with an old traditional feel. And I've been doing that a lot with these writers that are having success right now on the radio. And the publishing companies love when we combine the old school with the new school writers and get a little combination of both. But as far as for my faith goes, um, you just have to trust your work and trust your history. Uh, I can't get all bowled up because somebody got a cut on a song that I wouldn't have turned in. It's just good luck for them, because that negative energy that you put out by saying that's a stupid song does not help anybody, especially you, because that's negative energy that you're throwing out to the universe. And you don't need to have that going out there. You need to be happy and you need to be pleased with what you do. And writing songs and getting songs recorded and playing live music to a listening crowd is what spins my wheels.
Well, that's great. You like to help newer artists find their way. What do you think the biggest thing you have to strip away before they can make anything worth hearing for them?
Well, let me first say a list of people that I didn't think had a snowball's chance in hell that were friends of mine: Kenny Chesney, Garth Brooks, Colin Ray, Lone Star, just so many people, just Tim McGraw. I didn't think that they could sing. I didn't think they were that talented. Kenny Chesney was butt ugly, in my opinion, and 5'7". And I would always tell him, well, Kenny, I love you, but you're butt ugly and you can't sing. And we would laugh about it. But the one thing that separates Tim McGraw, Garth Brooks, Kenny Chesney from an average country star like Aaron Tippin, Colin Ray, one of those guys right in the middle there, Doug Stone, whatever, is they always wanted to be a country artist. And someday I hope I'm going to be a country artist. Someday I'm going to be a country artist. Garth, Kenny, and McGraw and Blake Shelton always told me the same thing. I'm going to be bigger than Elvis. That's a belief system that if you don't have it, then why get up to the plate if you don't think you're capable and you're going to hit a home run? Why would you step up there thinking, well, I might hit one into the infield, I might get a single? Why not think big, dream big? If you dream big and believe big, there's a really good chance you're going to get there.
So I'm a piano and voice teacher, and I always tell my students that I am the teacher that I wish I had. And what do you wish somebody had told you earlier?
One of the things that is most important in songwriting is editing. Good writers write good songs. Great writers edit great songs. And Rodney Crowell, who's one of my heroes, said it best: don't fall in love with the first few lines you throw out there. People will send me a song and say, can you fix this for me? I don't do that, because I was married to an interior designer years ago, and they'd say, can you remodel my bathroom? And we go, okay, well, whatever you want to do, we're going to go with. We trust you. And we'd say, okay, well, this black and white tile's got to go, and this blah, 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 and the bathroom's got to go. Oh, we love that. Can you work around that? So once somebody's attached to a line in the song or melody, whatever, they're not really open to change for the most part, because they think it's great. And if you've written 3,000 songs, you probably have a pretty good idea of if the line is right or not right. And you probably have a pretty good idea after listening to the demo 20 times, oh, there's a line in there I could fix. And you go back in and straighten it out. And a lot of my songs, looking back, that got recorded over the years, I just laugh and think that wasn't a great line. I could have done better. But, that song on that album sold 3 million copies. So for whatever reason at the time, it worked.
There you go. All right, quick fire, Bernie. We always do this on the show, so don't overthink it. Just first thing that comes to mind, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
What is a country song that you didn't write that still hits you right in the heart every time?
Blues man, Hank Jr.
All right.
It sings about me.
Okay. One song title you wish had been yours.
She thinks my tractor's sexy.
Let's see. What kind of lyric makes you check out?
In a good way or a bad way?
In a bad way.
Painted on blue jeans, tailgate, all those trite, overused lines.
Okay. What's one that makes you instantly want to lean in?
Anything that the line just blows me away. I wrote one the other day, and I'm just putting this out there. It's called Bar Fools, and it's kind of dark. It says, it's one that talks about 4 different people in the song. If you got a minute, I'll tell you this. And one of them, it says Eddie dealed in contraband, little weed and meth. He just got out of rehab, spent 2 years in the pen. Bartender gets his keep, so everybody wins. And this is the line I was really proud of. They're cashing in their chips for dreams already spent. And it's, they've already given up, so they're just going through the motions and stuff. So a line like that. There was a song that Conway had out called "That's My Job," and the opening lines of that song got my attention. Ships that don't come in, Joe Diffie. Songs like that get my attention, and it doesn't have to be a country song. I mean, there's some Tom Petty and some McCartney and stuff like that that just immediately. There's a song from Don Henley, "The End of the Innocents." Just so many great lines in that song that just rip at me.
So, what matters more, a killer title or a killer first line?
First lines have to be there. You've got, as my friend at ASCAP used to say, you've got 28 seconds to get their attention. And the melody has to be there. But when you get through, I was at Sony writing with a hit writer over there, and their big guys brought me in to talk about signing over there. And they said, they sit in a listening room on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays, listen to all the new demos that came in. And they're great melodies, great vocals. But at the end of the time, when it's time for that big payoff hook, there's nothing original there. They go, whoa, I've got a new song called I Was Saved Somewhere Between the Hymns and Her. And it's about a guy that couldn't quit drinking. And this woman prayed for him, but she couldn't hang in there any longer and had to leave him. And he ended up going back to church and singing old gospel hymns. So he was saved between the hymns and her.
Oh, wow. That's good. So what's something that Nashville gets right that people don't give it enough credit for?
They really do have great songs in Nashville, that they do really have great songwriters in Nashville. I go in there and do shows with these younger writers, and it's not that they're not out there kicking out great songs. I mean, there's amazing songs floating around Nashville, and there'll always be great songs. Hardy's a great writer. Matt Rogers that wrote "Till You Can't's" a great writer. A friend of mine, Jeremy Busty. There's so many great writers down the road that really do write great songs, but their tool, that you have a toolbox. And for the last 8 years, 80% of their tools were put back in the box because the record labels and publishers said, don't worry about great lyrics, just write a stupid song and keep using these same lines over and over again because they're working.
So what has Texas done for your soul?
I breathe in better. I breathe out better. When I'm in Nashville, I'm anxious. I'm excited because I get to be around my friends and stuff, and I get to write music. But the traffic, seeing where I used to see all these buildings that were magical are now condos, and studios where all the big hits came from are tore down in some condo or a bank that's owned by somebody who doesn't even live in Tennessee. And I fear that for Texas too. I mean, some of the most famous dance halls in Texas have been going out of business and bought up by some million billionaire out of Houston or California. So I don't miss that about Nashville, but I do love being around the magic, because the truth is you must be present to win sometimes. And when I get back on Music Row, if I do get another publishing deal, it's very cool. But when I was at EMI publishing company for 10 years, 85% of the songs that I got recorded, I pitched. And they knew that I would get cut, so they didn't pitch me that often. And but it's nice to have a big publisher that has more doors open than I do pitching your songs around.
So Bernie, tell us 2 things you'd love listeners to walk away with today.
Oh, I guess just like I said, get a game plan, get your mindset together, and figure out what you want. You don't have to be very specific, but find something in your wheelbox, in your past, whatever it is that makes you really happy, and concentrate on that. You don't have to be doing it, but if when you were doing it, it made you happy, think about that all the time, because being unhappy and being miserable because you don't like where you're at is going to leave you exactly where you're at. So if you find a happy spot, even if it's just thinking about when you were happy, happy is going to show up and good things are going to show up. And don't ever say words that are offensive to you derogatory about you, because words matter. If you say, I'm stupid and I'm never going to get married or I'm never going to get that great job, guess what? You're never going to get that great job. But if you just believe and just speak the truth, and then there again, as a Christian, try to do good stuff and not just do good stuff, but there's laws that are out there that God gave us, and it's kind of important to pay attention to those.
Well, I love that. So what's next on your plate?
Go home, feed my cow, uh, stuff like that. I'm lining up my calendar. I really haven't booked that much. I try to get out of God's way on that, and I don't chase things anymore. I do the work. I send emails out, hey, and I have people trying to find me shows and stuff, but I don't chase and I don't get anxious about, wow, I don't have any shows for the month of May, or I need another, $5,000 show this week or whatever. I don't get caught up in all that. And it may sound lazy, but a lot of times when I just stop trying to make things happen, they happen. That's the best way to put it. But, and the other thing, as a singer, work on your vocals. There's tools out there. There's one thing I saw the other day. It's like a headset with a microphone, and the only person that hears is you, but it's like being on stage. And you can really enhance your vocals with these new tools out there, and get a great vocal coach like I had, back there with Miss Retta. So.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I teach voice, and so you're speaking my love language. Well, listen, Bernie, thank you for being here today. You can follow Bernie on TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram. And of course, be sure to check out his book, Honky Tonk Angels. Any last words, Bernie?
Yeah, Honky Tonk Angels is probably one of the best things I've ever done, even better than writing big hits in Nashville. It's the stories behind songs like The House That Built Me, The Gambler, Lucille, I Can't Make You Love Me. The stories are amazing. I promise, even if you're not a songwriter, you'll really like the stories and my little hints of my faith in there. And the best way to get them autographed and out the door is at bernienelson.com, in my website that's being rebuilt, but you can still order them today on the old website. But we get them right out within 24 hours, and we do really well with the book, and I'm really proud of it.
Well, thanks for sitting a spell with me on the porch here on the Heather Petero Show. Thanks for joining us.
Well, I like the tea and I like the company, so thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much. This is the Heather Petero Show. Stay original, stay grounded, and we'll see you on the porch next time. You've been listening to the Heather Petero Show, produced by Heather Petero Studios. Connect with us on Facebook or Instagram, or visit heatherpetero.com. Until next time, stay creative and live on purpose.